Well, today we're going to take a look at the S-10. Once again, get a lot of questions why I'm not running it anymore. We had it out last fall, a year ago. Ran it a little bit. Ran it this year in the spring at Fast in America. Kind of short-lived, but still enjoy this thing. Had it out. Kind of got, I don't know, it kind of got asked to pull double duty because originally built this thing for drag week. Got annoyed with some of the guys coming out building fiberglass, carbon fiber, complete body cars. Didn't feel like that was within the spirit of the event, even though it fell in with the rule package. Just my opinion. Everybody's got one. We know how that goes. But I built it. You know, it's been called a transformer. It's been called all kinds of stuff. But to me, it kind of showed how much engineering we are capable of at the shop on doing different things and making one thing turn into something else, and once again making it easy to work on. So we made this thing. The front end on it is standard duty. We'll walk over here for a second, but took a normal pro stock truck front end. We made all the turbo inlets and everything for it at the shop, molded all those in. They're extremely large, but the reason for that is that if so I could slip an air cleaner on this thing. So put the front end on, slip an air cleaner on it. If it rains, the water comes down, doesn't actually go in the turbo. It's a big enough hole, it drains down below. Same thing in the front end. We made it where this piece zeus on and off. Made that so that we could take it off, drive down the road, gets plenty of air. As it turned out, it wasn't getting quite enough air, running into a little bit of heating issues. So as time went on, then I went ahead and cut a hole in the bottom of it, splashed another piece off for it so that this piece also comes off, so I can take both these off, run it down the highway, get back to the racetrack, put them back on, get all the air block out of this thing that were to, you know, to keep the air out from underneath the truck. So when we're driving this thing, it has a radiator and two fans and a water pump that's all integral that slips on the front of this thing into here. So it sets up here. It's got hoses that go to the heads. The water pump mounts down here off the radiator. The hoses go to the heads in the block, and it circulates the water through the heads in the block. When I race it on drag week, I would take the radiator off, which came off as an assembly, so I got rid of the water, the fans, the water pump, and I ran just a crossover line with the radiator cap on it, and it still had water in the block, just wasn't circulating. So at that point in time, it still had a radiator cap on it, so it could release the pressure as it got hot and built pressure. This cell up here was for alcohol, and same thing goes here. The mechanical spur gear pump from Aeromotive is on here, and run that at the racetrack. There's a small coupler in here in the middle of this thing that slips in between the pump and the engine, and that's what drives the pump. Well, going down the highway, we've got a gas cell that goes in the back of this thing that sits back there, and I ran off it down the highway. Well, you don't want this thing turning, so one little slip of the V-band clamp, you pop that thing off, slide it forward, take the coupler out that's an inch long, slide it back on. Now this pump doesn't turn, everything's sealed off. You hook the lines up from this tank to the rear tank, and you can switch the whole fuel system over in about, 3 or 4 minutes. Had two different tunes. This was the first actual vehicle to ever run on alcohol from Fuel Tech back in 2014. But we had two tune-ups in the Fuel Tech that takes 5 seconds to switch over with the push of a button, and you can switch it from a gas tune-up to a methanol tune-up, which made that part real easy. The tire and wheel combination, at the time, I wanted to switch from a front runner basically to run on the racetrack to a street tire that was thicker and heavier and more plies to run down the highway. I didn't want to run this little thin tire and take a chance. Some of the guys have had trouble over the years with poking a hole in these tires. They're thin, they're just asking for problems. So I wanted to run a real street tire. Well, the guys that were at Weld at the time didn't want me to have to go through all the grief of taking the brakes off every time. These are spindle mount wheels, which would have taken a lot of time and effort to swap back over. So they actually did this two-piece wheel, which used some wheel halves from sprint car stuff, built these wheels special so that basically you just come in, take these 5 bolts out, and just swap the whole wheel and tire. Takes a few minutes. So one of the other things that gets swapped over in between the drive and the race part of it, the doors, we did 2 sets of doors. It's got a set of steel doors that I made go on these pin-on hinges, and they go on to these latches. Still has roll-up windows, has the mirrors on them. We can get some air in the truck as we're driving it with the windows rolled down, side mirrors, all that's good, legal, everything works good. We get to the racetrack, I've got a set of carbon doors that fit into the trailer, and we just swap doors. They drop right back on. They're carbon, they're a little different, so we had to do a different latch here for those things to attach and latch. But once again, all the door seals still on it. Everything's still sealed up nice and tight. It's got a dash that goes in it. It's out right now because we got the transmission out of it, but had a dash in it, got enough shelf, got a place for drinks and cups and whatever else we're wanting to run. I've got a passenger seat that pins in it, that when we drive it, it goes in. When we race it, take it out. Turn signals, flashers. I use RacePac's smart wire system to operate all that. You can go in and write all the logic. So the horn, turn signals, it's got 4-way flashers, automatic fans, just pretty much all the things that a real street car would have or need. I wasn't ever a big fan of running bull horns on the side of these things going down the highway. I always felt like that was just advertising to get pulled over, on top of the fact that the fumes, the noise, everything else. So we actually made a set of side pipes for this thing, put some baffles in them, gets the exhaust and the noise back here. With the baffles, it quiets everything down. They just slip into a hole down here on the side and clamp down there, slip into this hole, pin in down there. So once again, everything is made where it comes on and off easily. We would switch wheels and tires, put a set of street tires on this thing. I would also switch shocks. I would take my Penske Kinetic Engineering shocks off of this, and because I didn't want to beat them up driving down the road, and I would put a set of RideTech air shocks on it. Made it ride real nice. Didn't have to worry about beating them up. It also made it nice too that I could just change the air in the shocks, raise or lower the rear of the truck, depending on what the trailer weighed, and you could also use it to aim the headlights a little bit as you raised or lowered the back of the truck. So that worked out good at night. The other thing we did to raise the truck up, because we actually raised the truck about 1 inch to 1.5 inches to drive down the highway, it has adjusters here for the upper strut mount. So right now, once again, it's got the street tires on it. These things are screwed down to raise the whole truck up 1 inch, 1.25 inches to gain some clearance underneath the front end, underneath the oil pan, just to raise everything up to drive it on the street. Then when you get back to the track, you just run these things back up, lower the truck back down. The aero package is better, crankshaft center line's lower. It makes it back into a race car. The rear fuel cell also is removable. It sets right here. We fabricated it at the shop. It's got its own pump that sets in it. The hose is jiffy tight together. So the pump, the filter, the vent, everything, you just drop it in, drop 4 pins in it. One plug, plugs all in. So everything goes in and out of this thing relatively easy. 2 guys, it would take us about 1 hour and 15 minutes in the morning to turn this thing around, change the oil, put plugs in it, do all this stuff to swap everything over to make it go down the road. At night, or at the end of the day when we got done, it'd take us 45 minutes or so, swap everything back over, load the trailer back up, hook it up, and set sail. So the truck was originally built for drag week. It wasn't designed to NPK or any of this no prep stuff wasn't an issue or wasn't a thing back in 2014. So we started doing some of the no prep races in probably 2017, I believe, when the car and the truck, the Chevy 2 and the truck, both went to Australia at the end of 2016 and the start of 2017, and we went over there and ran 4 events over at Willowbanks. So when I got back from there, I ran it in 17, started doing some no prep stuff, kind of got hooked on that, enjoyed the challenge of the tuning and stuff. So along came No Prep Kings and the Street Outlaws side of things, and things got changed over, started running it in the no prep scenario. Then coming into, they wouldn't let me run it at first. The first season I tried to get in. They would let me run it at Outlaw Armageddon and some of the local stuff, but NPK wouldn't let me come in and run. So finally there was some differences between wheelbase, some things they didn't like, didn't want to see, whatever. Finally they let me run it with an extended bed on it. They wanted it to look like a long bed instead of a short bed because of the wheelbase. So I went in and made a cap off another S-10 that basically slid on, bolts on, and that was what I had as an extended bed to make it look like a long bed. I ran that in season 1 and season 2 for No Prep Kings. Then they decided that it wasn't going to be legal anymore. They wanted something with more stock appearing, and hence we went on to the Cadillac. But this thing has been a war horse for me. It's, you know, I could hardly ever do any wrong in this thing. So I've got good memories with it. We set the record in 2014 when we took it to drag week. The first year out, it was a thrash among all others. We'll probably do a video on that at some point in time about drag week and what that's involved and some of the Rocky Mountain race weeks we've been to. But anyway, everybody wants to know about the truck, where it's been. I've still got it. It's got a 481X in it right now. We took the water motor out of it, and that's what's in it at this point in time. But we've got some things working. All I can tell you is there's a fairly good chance that this thing might see drag week one more time. And that being the case, we're going to see if that all comes to play. We're going to see if we can reset the record and take it away from somebody else.